Horses help us remember what we once were. We were pretty pure. We were pretty uncorrupted. The human element hadn't really got its hooks into us through programming and conditioning of all the systems that are in place long before we got here. They changed that resonance frequency in us. It's supposed to happen. Earth is a school. When a person says, hey, I want to make a change, they want to burn down the old structure and rebuild a new one. I've seen so many things with horses and people and the crossovers that cannot be replicated in four walls of therapy. They can't be duplicated in like a classroom. It can't be digitized. You're going to tear down old patterns and behaviors. And you're going to go inward in the silence with a horse. You will be so violent on yourself because you're trimming and shaving the old you off, and it's dead, so you're getting rid of it anyway. And you're becoming something so new and beautiful, but it's a transition period. It's not snap of a finger. You're the CEO of your body. You're the CEO of your mind. And I encourage you to write a mission statement for yourself. What is your mission statement? What is your personal one that you will not detour from?
There are healers on this planet with the power to soften the suffering of mankind, yet they have remained in the recesses of the world, abused, discarded, and labeled as trash. This is The Touch of a Mustang. I am your host, Shalise Clough, and I'm here to tell the story of wild horses, Mustangs, and the humans who are discovering and sharing their gifts while working to protect their well-being and preserve their spirit, so this divine power won't be lost. Join us on this quest with the Wild Mustang. Justin, welcome back to the Touch of the Mustang podcast. It's great to have you here again. You have been on here before. You were actually my first guest, which is kind of fun. You're the founder of the American Mustang School, a horseman and author, and we're here because we're both ambassadors for Samson's Strength Sustainable Veteran Project during the Horses for Mental Health campaign. And so that's one reason we're coming together again, is to talk more about how horses can really help people to find a better place as they're living life. You have done a lot of work with Mustangs. That's what first connected us. I talk a lot about having a mentor who kept me going, and that mentor was actually you. I remember we met at Big R, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I should not be training a Mustang. And you were just like, you can do it. Yeah, no problem. You can do it. And just gave me hope. That was what I needed. That's like, yeah, I might have to learn and figure it out, but yeah, I think I can probably do it now. If he says I can do it and he's done stuff with Mustangs, then maybe I can too. So super great mentor to have. And I appreciate you, giving me that encouragement in times when I needed it, because it really is one of the things that helped me keep Mustangs in my life. And that's been life altering for me. You've spent 20 years working with Mustangs. You now work with, or have in the past worked with, military operators, first responders, and anyone that's really in search of healing and purpose in this world. People who have been in pretty dark places have come to you and been able to find another way through their time with the horses. And you have a book that's coming out soon that we're going to be talking about. Just another interesting note, which I don't know if I ever told you, but your first book is part of why I started the podcast. And I can't even remember what it was in that book, but something just like working for these horses and doing what you could for the Mustangs. And then I kind of got a crazy idea after reading that and ran with it. And here we are 2 years later. It's been 2 years now. So
Wow.
Having said all that, welcome to the podcast again.
Wow, you can't know how deeply touched I am, Shayleigh, to hear you say that as a mentor. I appreciate that. And then reading the book, at least I inspired one person. That's great.
Yeah, you definitely had, and I can guarantee it's had a ripple effect, because I've definitely heard people who have commented on guests I've had on here who have talked about the way horses have changed them, that it has also impacted them. So
Cool.
Yeah, thanks for the work you do, for putting your voice out there, even when a lot of voices are saying other stuff. It's good to have a voice that's like, hey, this is the one that resonates with me. Like, this is what I've been feeling. This is where I feel like my soul needs to move towards, to find healing and purpose. And obviously that connection for both of us was Mustang horses. So that's kind of what what brought me to find you and helped create this relationship we've been able to have to speak into the world about Mustangs and how they can help people.
Yeah, I'm happy to be a part of it. Man, connecting dots in reverse. My very first Mustang. Huh, I still have him. And man, it's you just kind of brought back a thought or a memory. It's interesting how you can set down a path and it's not clear, and then it becomes clear. And all of the things just surrounding Mustang horses that have come into my life to benefit my life and be able to witness it benefit in others' lives is a life well worth living. That this American Mustang school stems from that very first Mustang, and being able to be a part of something much bigger than myself. I guess what I'm really saying is, without horses or without Mustangs, I'm not sure what I would be. What would be the point? That's the big question. And
Yeah.
the second book that you mentioned, I try to answer the question, what is the meaning of life? And I'm not going to reveal it. They'll have to get the book, but
Yeah.
it runs along the lines of um, living a life of purpose and discovering self in this earth school that we're in. School is American Mustang School is a school of horsemanship, and I call it or define it horsemanship based life coaching. And everybody thinks that I'm coaching them, but everybody who's come through my gate has coached me in turn. And it's like, wow, just from that first Mustang to today, some of the highest performance people on the planet have come through that gate and have given me way more than money could buy. It's a depth of knowledge. We can even say wisdom, that horses were the resonance frequency to attract. Other words, I would have never met these high performance people without horses. And to the listeners out there, if you have an idea, like you don't really know what it is yet, you just know I have a passion for horses and I have a passion for sharing what horses share with me, or you love people. Those are the two common denominators in my world, is I loved horses and I love people. So I put those two together. And what we have today is American Mustang School, and it's showcasing the resonance frequency in both horse and human, and then stepping into nature and aligning 5 elements. My first book had 4, and I've added a 5th one. Those 5 elements in alignment creates a resonance frequency to where you can actually, I won't say, man, and I can say things that'll make sense, but they probably won't understand it until they experience it. So the different layers of reality, you can actually manipulate those into your favor. You can create a reality based on your perception by shifting perspectives that the horse shows us and changing mindset. It's just that simple. There's a complexity to it because it's a formula. We definitely got to go inward and look at ourselves, and we've been programmed and conditioned to look outward. And whenever you can look inward, you can discover the true alignments. And those 5 alignments, I'll just reveal them. What we think, thoughts, how we feel, feelings, emotions. Those 2 internal pathways are communicative to a horse. He's already read that in you before words were ever spoken. So it's a resonance frequency exchange, energy exchange, where what you think and what you feel, horses pick up on. They have a little, we'll call it a little receiver, and you transmit that, they'll receive it. Brain to brain, body to body. Because if people don't know this yet, we are animals before we ever spoke words. Horses are animals. So there is a ancient, primitive way of communicating, and it's through thought and emotion. That's an internal pathway of communicating. Then there's external pathway of communication, which is attitude, which is posturing. A horse can posture a certain way and he doesn't even have to do anything. people posture a certain way and they don't have to do anything. We call that nonverbal communication. And then we have action. So attitude and action, those are external pathways of communication. I've read that the eyes in a human have 10 million sensory receptors. I'm going to just make an assumption horses have quite a bit of them too. So what we see, we're processing information. What horses see, they're processing information. So what we do in action is nonverbal communication. What they do in action is nonverbal communication. But there's an invisible element to this, and it's energy, it's frequency, vibration. A person feeling high vibration, the horse can pick up on that. Person feeling in a low vibration, horse picks up on that. If we develop a conscious awareness to this energy transfer between horse and human, we can start to look inward, define those thoughts, define those emotions. See, an emotion will motivate a thought, or a thought will motivate an emotion. Most people aren't aware of it. Horses are.
Yeah.
So whenever we can start to see feedback from our horse, we can start to get a deeper understanding of ourselves. That's why I defined my second book, The Sacred Art of Horsemanship. And that simply means a set apart practice of self-study, self-discovery, and self-mastery with a horse as an accountability partner. That's the definition. Now, it capillaries off into a lot of other things. We have to know laws of nature, principles of the universe. We have to know them. If we want to implement them, and I'm not talking about read them and know them. I'm talking about we have to know them by aligning ourselves to utilize them to our advantage of navigating Earth, which is a school. Earth is a school. We get to learn contrast. We get to understand that there is day, there is night. Contrast. Temperature, hot, cold. The human emotion, happy, sad. All of these things, universal principles, I put into horsemanship because that's what the horse understands. And I shouldn't even say it that way. The horse understands it. So they know this. They operate in this. It's a vibrational frequency. So whenever a person comes through my gate, they don't even know technically what they're looking for. They just know they're in a place they are and they want to be in a different place. So it's called resonance. It's called a resonance transformation. And what that means is what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're doing. They want to change that to better themselves generally. They're in a position where they don't feel that they're as good as they could be. Horses help us remember what we once were, which was when we first popped into Earth, we were pretty pure. We were pretty uncorrupted, we'll call it. The human element hadn't really got its hooks into us. We were vibrating at a frequency. And through programming and conditioning of all the systems that are in place long before we got here, they changed that resonance frequency in us. And it's supposed to happen. Earth is a school. When we come here, the soul gets to learn. It gets to see contrast, it gets to feel, it gets to experience, it gets to become. So horses are the gateway for a person to actually grow, expand. That's what the soul wants to do. And we won't get too philosophical or too spiritual, but in a nutshell, that resonance transformation in thought, emotion, attitude, action, and then I'll define this intention is very important because horses read intention. And if a person comes in that rediscovery of self, and they're pure in that, and it's from a love frequency rather than a judgment frequency. And I'm not necessarily talking about judging the horse. I'm talking about they judge themselves. Horses do not resonate very well when we're in a lot of judgment of ourselves, but they are really conducive to the love frequency. So one of the things I'll say when people come in here, hey, this is a safe place to make a mistake. This isn't robotic. This isn't regimented. This is not on a certain time. Granted, we have time constraints because 2 hour session, but it's not something that there's a curriculum written where you have to meet every little goal within that 2 hours, because horses don't operate that way very well. They can adapt to it to some degree, but whenever we can actually follow a flow of being in the present moment, then it's navigable and tailorable to an individual's needs, both horse and human. So in order to step in the divine frequency of the present moment, that's why all those other things can't come into play. So I can get to where I rattle on and just keep going down a transfer chain of this, but I really like this Horses for Mental Health campaign in May to showcase, how horses can benefit people and people can benefit horses, because this all kind of seems one-sided a lot of times, where people are using horses to heal themselves. But I'll say this works in both ways done correctly. I was asked one time, a lady said, what's in it for the horse? And I said, oh, that's a great question. Very few people ever are concerned about the horse. They
Right.
generally put the horse second in anything they do. Well, at American Mustang School, when we put the horse first and everything else second, that's the benefit of the horse. That horse gets to think thoughts they hadn't thought, feel feelings they hadn't felt, posture or have an attitude they hadn't had, and do actions that they otherwise wouldn't do. And when I drill down on this and really explain it, a horse has a consciousness, wants to develop awareness. That's why they're receiving information through their 5 senses. Whenever we can utilize this energy exchange between human and horse, we can actually help the horse grow in their conscious awareness, in their expansion, for what they came to Earth for. So they're just fine out there in the wild. Well, let me say it a little more delicately. They're just fine out there uninterrupted by man in the wild. They eat, they poop, they procreate, they play with their friends, they operate in a divine frequency of the present moment, experiencing life. Now, we invite them at American Mustang School, we invite them into the human element correctly with keeping that number one. We do not want to change that frequency. We do not want to change that resonance. We want to tap into it. We want to align ourselves so that they will willingly give over information, which is energy, so that we can feel it again and remember what we were before we became into the human element, and what we are. And I can get into the weeds on this for some people, but to keep it simple, you got a wild horse. Uninterrupted by man is how I define a wild horse. Bring them into the human element, and you're not trying to force compliance. People misinterpret dominance. They'll say, I want to dominate this horse, control this horse through dominance. Well, that's forcing their will on the horse. To really define dominance in this horse-human relationship, I want to align myself so that I can be dominant in creating a willingness in the horse. Meaning, I want to offer something so true and honest to the horse, they wouldn't want to make any other choice, because then they serve in their highest capacity of what they came to Earth to do. And that is to be a part of something bigger than themselves. So if we're both in that understanding, and I'll say it this way, inner standing. If we're both in that inner standing, then we have not separated in human horse of those words. We've started a resonance frequency that is the same, and it's reciprocal. So what I send to them, they send to me. I soften, they soften, they soften, I soften, just as an example. But it goes even deeper. And I should pause here and explain to the listeners. You can get a sense of what I'm saying, and you can get a sense of what I wrote in the book. But until you come and experience with a horse in alignment and transfer energy back and forth in a manner that is in present moment, never get a true essence of what I'm even speaking of. The
Yeah.
words that I'm using are so limited in form because there are three planes of existence. And horses know this, and I've checked over and over and over and over. They know this. The three planes of existence: uh, physical, mental, spiritual. There's some more, but we'll just focus on those three. It's a matter of resonance frequency in those different planes. So, thought and emotion in the physical, yeah, nonverbal communication. That's kind of a lot of people won't argue. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. But then when you go seamless into mental, where there's no restriction of words, because horses, they don't call tree a tree or dirt dirt or sun sun or hot hot. They don't have all these definitions and labels. They seamlessly navigate earth without that. So it's a little, and I don't want to say difficult because it's easier, but it's a little difficult for a carnal mind or a person that is in so ingrained, and I have to see it to believe it, or in the physical, to to really get a depth of, or even an inkling of the depth that can be experienced in the mental. And then the spiritual is even better. But trying to keep this simple for the podcast's sake, when a person seeking mental health doesn't really understand that you can go into different planes of existence, I'm going to say that that's going to be difficult to experience any kind of resonance transformation. If we're stuck just in physical, have to believe to see, or that's probably the best way to describe it. It's so limiting. Horses, they don't have to see to believe things. They can feel things on we'll call it a different reality layer, or intuition. That might be the best word to describe it. They have intuition. They can sense things without seeing. So can people. But the programming and conditioning that people go through distorts it so much. It's so noisy. They don't know what's
Yeah.
relevant or irrelevant. A horse knows what's relevant or irrelevant. The human brain wants to operate at its highest capacity and efficiency and effectiveness to sustain life. Whenever a person's emotions bog that down, just by thinking logically only, not using emotion to think with, um, they focus on too much irrelevant things, and then it gets fatigue. So we call it mental tension.
Yeah.
And when there's never a release, it transfers into the body, which is physical tension, and that compounds into frustration, fatigue, and then you get, just transfer chain on down. You get drinking, you get drugs, you get all these things to try to find a release. Well, what's the answer? Well, the answer in horsemanship is we're going to change the resonant frequency to where you think different, feel different, your attitude's different, you do different, and you get a release. And there's a process and procedure to physically train the body to do it, which is called triggering a body response of relaxation in the horse world. And then it lets a person stop, release mental tension, physical tension, and breathe and just be. And it's only 2 or 3 seconds, it could be longer. And then go back into thinking, feeling, attitude, action. And the intention is so important. And we talked about that already, so I won't repeat it. But it's a matter of alignment in those five elements within a person to dominate the experience to where you create the reality that you want. And that's the streamlined way to define it. There's lots of capillary actions that come off of that, but the horses pick up on what you're wanting to do intuitively, and then they step in and reveal things that I could never train them to do. That's what's fascinating to me, and to watch a person come through the gate wanting something they don't even know exists, and the horses step right up and go, "Oh, hey, here's what you want. I know exactly what you want." That's why I can't create this, duplicate this on a book to where a person could understand it. It's not going to work that way for good reason.
Yeah. It is definitely something I think that you have to experience on your own because there are so many of our senses involved in it that reading alone or even talking about it alone is just insufficient to totally explain it. And so much of what you talked about are definitely threads that pretty much everyone that comes on here who has had their life transformed with horses also talks about finding alignment with your soul. You know, you go in there dark and lost and you don't even know what's wrong some of the time, and somehow the horses are able to help you find that alignment again, kind of find the elements of life that your soul needs that are sucked away by all the overstimulation that we have in the world, where our minds are just racing and, like you said, focusing on the wrong things and on things that aren't important or things that are making us sick and unhealthy. um, and then another huge one is just how they're able to bring us into the present moment and awareness, where a lot of us couldn't even, if you said, "How are you feeling?" and you really had to think about how are you feeling right now, some of us couldn't even say what emotion we're feeling or what exactly we're feeling because we've been so programmed, so conditioned to just keep going. Like we don't really think about emotions. We don't think about the feelings that we get from different experiences that we have. We just think, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what society, culture, finances tell me that I'm supposed to be doing today. So I do it and I don't think beyond that. And with horses, you can't. If you want to do it successfully with horses, you can't go in there with some huge agenda. You need to go in there and open yourselves up. And like you say, have that learning experience, start gaining that wisdom. I've experienced the exact same thing where yeah, they somehow deliver the wisdom for what you need in those moments for whatever each individual is dealing with.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out, I don't think people question enough, and they're not wrong in doing some of the things that they are doing. It's just that
Yeah.
they haven't questioned it. I give examples in my first book, like a mortgage. Having a mortgage. We're born. We're like the only species on the planet that has to pay to live here, but we're born into this society, and it's just kind of an understanding. You got to have a mortgage, and I'll say it in that exact way, understanding, because that means there's an authority over you that dictates what you have to do. So mortgage, we could look up the root word of mortgage in Latin. Have you ever looked?
I have not.
Yeah, it's like it's been a while since I looked, but it's like death grip. Mort being death, Gedge grip. Uh,
Sounds strangely correct.
yeah, so it's like, okay, my house, I have to have a mortgage on and pay property tax and all these things. So uh, rather than fight that, I'll like, well, let me figure out how to play their game better than them. Tip the table in my favor. So I did that, and I explained that in my first book. It's pretty simple to do, but the thing is, I questioned it. I looked around one day and I thought, all you guys are just going to pay mortgage for 30 years of your life. That's like a normal thing to do here on Earth, and everybody's kind of like, yeah. I mean, what else? But then you go down the transfer chain. It's like they don't have other options because they fell way into the script. The
Yeah.
script
And
that
the
was,
model that we grew up seeing,
yeah,
that is the path that we're shown.
yeah, get a job, and then we know what JOB stands for, right?
No.
Just over broke.
Yeah.
So let's look at some dark psychology, and I very delicately do this on public air, but in the arena with horses, or in the woods with horses, I'll go full throttle, and I'll
Hmm.
reveal some dark psychology that's been played on us. Let's look at like this programming and conditioning is the best way to describe it. But if you and I were to create a system so we could control people, we would probably make a a school system that we could start with, right? And we could get them showing up at a certain time. We could get them sitting in a certain chair for a certain amount of time, and then when a bell rings, we could get them to move to the next chair, and we just get them start going in that direction. And then they have to raise their hand to go to the bathroom, and animals don't do this, right? So people
Yeah.
people do this to other people. So some dark psychology is like, what do we know about people? What characteristics do we know? Like four main characteristics. They have fear. They have curiosity. They have greed, and they have confidence. So if we can play on those, because that's essentially what horses have. They have fear, curiosity, confidence. They don't have the greed. And when I say greed, I'm talking about like human psychology of I need to feel validated. I need to feel accepted, wanted, needed. I need to prove to you I'm worthy to be, your friend. So if I could create a system where let's advance it up into a job, and I need employees. I want trained people in a sense that I want them to show up on time. I want them to sit in a chair. I want them to, you know, make just enough money to where they'll stay, but not have enough to leave. I want to create the system to where they will bend to my reality, not theirs. I write the script for them. They don't write their own. When I give them a raise, I want them to go and buy a bigger house. I want them to get into a bigger mortgage to get them to come back the next morning to make more money. And I want to perpetuate this system on a mass scale. And I want to get people thinking that I want to play on their greed, thinking that they're accepted and they serve a purpose. But it's not their true purpose because they've never tapped in and questioned these five alignments. What are they thinking, feeling? What's their attitude? What are their intentions? What is their action? And they haven't thought of it daily. They may have come across it, watched it, but in horsemanship, you have to reciprocate that in real time, all the time, because they are operating in a frequency where they see it, feel it, intuitively know it. And if a person doesn't, they are never going to expand, we'll call it, in a conscious awareness of themselves or this earth school that we're in. So that's just a little touch of some dark psychology that's used on humanity. And then you go into the horse world, they're manipulative type people that do know it. And they use fear and curiosity and confidence a horse displays to force compliance, control the horse. See, I choose not that direction. I choose to go inward, align in that proper alignment, and create willingness in the horse. The fear, the curiosity, the confidence. Yeah, I understand them. And do they have a purpose? Yeah, absolutely. If a horse fears something, I look at it as an opportunity to help them not fear it. So then it'll benefit them. And then they can draw closer to me by default. And then fear in the future is inconvenient. It's not anything that needs to be done. It'll be the horse will actually process information much more efficiently through questioning. Like, should I fear that trash truck? And then I can simply say no. And there's a process and procedure to that too. But each event gets less and less. So then the horse can operate just as they would out in the wild, eating, pooping, procreating, enjoying their life. But they can do that in the human element with me. So there's the master key that we got to create within ourselves to unlock that relationship and energy exchange. So to expand their conscious awareness and our conscious awareness and come together to attract other things that we don't even know about. And I'd like to go into that here shortly with starting my school, starting with my first Mustang and then starting the school and then heading out on a path that I didn't know the clarity of until getting on the path, and the path becomes clear. And then the type of individuals that show up here today that I would never meet without the horse. So that's what I mean, getting in alignment, operating at a frequency, and attracting others that are in a frequency or were in and want to revisit and remember that. So, not to complicate it too much, but like mental health, that's kind of what we're talking about. Somebody 20 years ago, I meet today, 20 years later. 20 years ago, when I got into the first round pen with my first Mustang, and then if we could just kind of chronologically go all through today, and I'm in a round pen with that same Mustang and a person I would never have met without the horse. And then the resonance transformation in all three of us is taking place because there's advancements and expansions taking place that were in the making 20 years ago for all three involved because we were all alive, as far as people. But the amalgamation of all the experiences and choices that were made in those three individuals leading up 20-year time frame to that round pin, then you start to realize, oh wow, there's an invisible realm to this. There's a alternative space that I kind of wondered about, but now I know exists. And then when that resonance transformation happens in those three people, or horse, two people, but see, when you go into this realm of thinking, there's no division. There's no people horse. It's living being. It's a vibration that's understood or understood. It's not like, oh, I'm person, you're horse. I'm above you, you're beneath me. None of that, which could be confusing when I talk about principles because, second principle of the universe being correspondence, how things work together. Yeah, in a class, he's horse, I'm a person. But as we advance in knowing, there's really not a lot of difference. It is a vibrational frequency that is exchanged between two living beings. And where I'm weak, I get strong. And where the horse is weak, he gets strong. And then it's like, oh wow, yeah, let's advance toward this. And like I say, it's tough to explain it on digital media, but whenever
Yeah.
you experience it in real life,
Well, and one thing that I just thought of as you were talking about that is we are given this path that we're programmed to follow. And it seems like if you follow that path, there will be guarantees in life, that you won't have to live in that constant fear. And that's the path that is shown us, the one we start in school, that you do X, Y, and Z, and that is the way to life. And then there's this other path that seems much more scarier to set out on. There's not necessarily those hard guidelines that someone is just telling us. And then, as you pointed out, you go down that path and it is unknown. You don't know what's there. I guess the difference is they're both unknown. The first one you just think is not unknown, but you don't really know how your life's going to play out. But then the second path, if you choose to go down that one where things seem less sure, there is not necessarily a clear path to follow. You're kind of exploring and seeing as it unfolds, and just the different ways that, as you pointed out, it can unfold where you have these interactions with people that you never would have met in another way. And even the way that you're meeting them, maybe if you'd met them in the corporate world, it would not be the same interaction as in a filled with a horse and two people.
you got it. You got it. Can people comment on your podcast? Can they type something and comment?
Not like why we're talking because it's not live, but after the fact, yeah.
Okay, so I would encourage people to write to this if they're listening. I embrace the unknown, and when they write that, the words do have power. I mean, when you spell out a word, it casts a spell, supposedly. But I embrace the unknown. When people come to this gate, they have made a decision. I'm going to go check this horse thing out. I don't know what to expect. Some of them have preconceived notions, and then they all say, "Ooh, this is nothing like what I thought." You got to realize that 98% of the people on this planet never question why they're here, where'd they come from, where are they going, long enough to find the answer. They may question it, but then that's it.
Yeah.
They did. To go on the path of the unknown, to travel down it, it takes courage. In my
Yeah.
first book, I talk about burning the ships, like that song, or like Cortez, I believe it was, that burned his ships when he got to the land, so they could not turn back because fear of the unknown is so strong.
Yeah.
The men would
Yeah.
be like, "Ah, I'm leaving. I'm getting on the boat. I'm going home. I know where it's familiar. I know where it's comfortable. I'll do that." That's destruction. That's destructive. But that's why they're the braver brave. They'll step out into the unknown, willing to take a chance for an opportunity to make change. And that's why there's only 2% of the people that will do it.
Yeah.
Whenever you do study on like some of these people that are just really successful in life, inventors, you name them, they're standouts, phenomenal at what they do. It's simply because they embrace the unknown in a manner that fear didn't. It was just too inconvenient to be fearful of it because they're processing at such a high frequency. And I'll say it's a love frequency, but we'll just call it a high frequency. They didn't have judgment, they didn't have the ego coming in trying to burn down what they were trying to build. And that's counter to growth. So when a person says, "Hey, I want to make a change," they're literally professing they want to burn the ship. They want to burn down the old structure and rebuild a new one. And a lot of people are like, "No, I can't burn down
It's
my
hard to
old
do.
structure, man. What are you, crazy?" I've done it many, 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 many times, and it's going against the grain. And now it's
Yeah.
almost like an opportunity I look for. Like, how can I go into an unknown? I literally want one. When
Yeah.
people come and we put it into horse terms, cross over into horse terms, they'll they'll focus more on what they don't want than they do want. I've really seen a common denominator in that. People are like,
Yeah.
"I don't want that." They know that, but in essence, that's what they're going to get because that's what their attention's going to. So, in other words, I don't want my horse to run away with me. I don't want him to bolt.
Mhm.
That's like,
Yeah.
well, don't focus on that. Focus on what you do want, not what you don't want, because it breaks the feedback loop. It breaks that resonance frequency that we're trying to get to. Because when a person focuses on what they don't want, it takes away awareness. It's irrelevant. It takes away energy, and it cannot progress forward. Now, there's varying degrees in different situations that can explain this better, but just in the bolting, I'll ask them, why would you think my horse, I know him very well, why would you think he would bolt? Oh, because one time when I was 11 years old, I was on a horse and it bolted away with me, and oh my gosh, that was the scariest thing in my life, and I almost died. And it's like, okay, you just went in the present moment frequency, divine frequency, present moment, right now, and you took your thought energy back in the past and you chose to look at that experience as a negative, as detrimental, as something you don't want, and you brought it here now, and it is definitely going to have a determining factor on your future. And then we can talk about contributing factors, determining factors, but it's like, why would humans, and this is a question most people probably would never ask, why would they focus on something they don't want and then attach an emotion of fear to it? And then start spiraling down that transfer chain of debilitation to where they give up. The ego says, "Don't do it." It's like, wow, what? And I put this in my first book. What if he doesn't run away? Because they'll say, "What if he runs away?" It's like, well, what if he doesn't?
Yeah.
And then you just kind of pause because those are equal valuable questions. So then you transfer chain down. It's like, well, if we want to entertain this, what if he runs away? How about we create a system to get desirable results? How about we create a system that you can default to if that should happen, to where you can nip it in the bud, where you don't keep going down that transfer chain, and you can rise to a goal that you do have. See, all the high performing people that come through here, the reason that they make it is they developed a system and they created it themselves. They built it themselves to establish a way to continue forward when they're fatigued, when they're burnt out, when the world seems to be against them. They just default to that system and they work the system. And then they realize the results. 98% of the people cannot do it. That's why horse training is a valuable mechanism to allow me to coach people into that. It's something that you can follow a system, but you're creating it as you do it. And then you can have it when you, it's almost like when we learn to drive, we're paying conscious attention to every little detail, where our hands
Yeah.
are, gas pedal, turning. The more you do it, the more you do it. You develop a system, and then you subconsciously do it. You think about everything else, driving down the highway for 15, 20 minutes instead of driving. It's the same thing in anything. It's just develop a system, conscious awareness to the system, regardless of outside influences. So whenever I take a horse and I go ride into town, there are people that will say, "How do you do that? I would be so scared." It's like, well, I have a system and I follow it.
Yeah.
And when something seems to go wrong as far as an outside influence trying to interrupt my alignments, those 5 alignments, and my presentation to my horse and my feedback from my horse, and keeping that energy exchange fluidly flowing, outside influences have little to no effect on that. It doesn't matter. Maybe at one point it did matter more than it matters, but it's where I chose what's relevant, what's irrelevant, where to put energy, where to not waste energy. And then practicing that spills over into the 5 main areas of life. And that's health, wealth, happiness, relationships, spirituality. And people try to focus on one or two, and they try to do it the way other people did it. That's not going to work. Those may be contributing factors, but they're not determining. When a person goes inward and aligns what they're thinking, feeling, attitude, action with intention, they create their own ability to balance those 5 areas of their life, and they have to be balanced. They're going to be imbalanced. There's never balance. That's one thing people say, you got to stay centered, you got to stay in balance. That's no such thing, because here's why. Nature's not in balance. If it was, it wouldn't exist. That's what Earth is, contrast. It's day, it's night. That's why it's trying to get in balance, because it's day, it's night. It's windy, it's not windy. It's cold, it's hot. It's raining, it's not. Dang, that was like a little poem I just made.
Right
But
on the
it's
spot. Good job.
but it's just like so simple to see when you start resonating at this frequency and understanding vibration and energy and putting them all together and then defining them with some simple principles and then applying them through practice of horsemanship. And then you step out into the real world away from the horse. We'll call it the real world, just to differentiate. Then it's a lot easier. Mental health is like, oh wow, uh, I'm mentally healthy. I'm physically healthy. So we focus on health first, the main area of life. If you're sick, broken, unhappy, it's going to be tough to have a relationship. And then spirituality, the all encompassing, is like where 98% of people operate without it. So get healthy. Then
Yeah.
we get wealthy. Then we get happy. And happiness, people want to define it in all different ways, but my experience is whatever you find joy, whatever excites you in these moments, that you're not sacrificing for growth. Some people say, "Well, I get happy when I go get drunk." It's like, yeah, you're sacrificing growth. That's going to lead you down the transfer chain of destruction. It's a compounding
Yeah.
effect. That's one of the things that I talk about in the first book. Compounding effects. People can't see them without a horse. I've seen it in other areas, but with a horse, you can learn cause and effect in real time immediately. You pick up a rein, he turns his head. Cause, effect. It's simple. Body awareness. What are these hands doing? What are these legs doing? What decisions am I making to create a cause and then realize the effect? The only difference is time, and time is created by us, people. We've kind of tried to control it and name it and
Yeah.
abide in it. The horse doesn't have any clue about that. He understands cause and effect. Now, the difference is they understand compounding effects. So, horse does something, pokes his nose on a cactus, cause, it hurts, effect. He's not going to keep doing that over time. Human, they'll drink first drink alcohol at 17 years old, and then 40 years old, they're like, man, I'm an alcoholic. I got ulcers in my stomach. My digestive system's messed up. My liver's shot. The time in between that cause and effect, compounding, the awareness wasn't there because they weren't vibrating in a frequency of resonance to where they could actually live in the present moment. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting going back to your discussion about systems. It is interesting because we are all following a system. There are all things that we have in our life that's just the places we kind of automatically have learned to respond to the world. And depending on what system we put in place or implement or direct that to, kind of directs where our life goes. So the idea that you can change your system so that your automatic responses are different, so that your programming is different, is a pretty interesting concept.
Yeah, it's a fabulous concept because horses are different. They're not all the same. They're not cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Traditional training practices are so lacking. They're so lacking. Horses are so much individual, and then we can take the two different differentials here. We take a domestic horse and a once wild horse. Those two are dynamically different, and they're like people. And I comment about this in my book in a little different way. I'll try to change it up a little bit so it doesn't spoil the book. But you take a certain person, and they got two different jobs. They're living two different realities. They're thinking different, they're feeling different, their attitudes are different, their intentions are different, their actions are definitely different. And then you side by side, what is atrophying and what is getting exercised and growing in each one. So you take a wild horse and a domestic horse. Domestication through process of generation after generation after generation, you're atrophying this domestic horse in a lot of survival skills, thinking ability, regulation skills, coping with fear, we'll just say. The same thing in people. The crossovers are so obvious, but you got nature in a wild horse that is nurturing that horse. Then you got the people and the human element
Yeah.
nurturing this horse. What is the dynamic difference? And the dependency is what I'm talking about. And through control is what it is. Nature doesn't try to control the horse. Horse doesn't try to control nature in the sense of the control. Human element, lots and lots of control. So any living being that has irritation, obstruction, um, you know, pain, cause pain, they're going to resent it at the least. They're going to rebel at the most. They don't want to sustain life doing that. So that's that control mechanism where we can only control what we can, and that's ourselves. And what we choose to think, what we choose to say, that's relevant. I want to think that. That's irrelevant. I don't want to think that. How we choose to feel about what we think. It's like politics. I see people come through here and they're apolitical. Doesn't even matter. Some people they're like, oh my gosh, this guy that. Oh my gosh, this guy that. And it's like, okay, those are choices that you never questioned. What you think, what you feel, what's your attitude going to be, what's your action. And maybe they're right about what they're saying, but it's destructive. It's creating a destructive pattern in the system that they chose to think, feel, have an attitude about, have an action about, based on their intentions. See, horses, they're the most beneficial piece to mental health because they can actually help a person come into a different alignment, a resonance transformation in their thought, emotion. So then attitude, action, and intention, and then they can have a differential. They can go back into their old self, their old group of people, and their old thinking, feeling, and acting, that way. Now they have a differential because they played with horses and that resonance frequency, and they started thinking different, feeling different, their attitude changed, their actions changed. Through practicing that, their intention changed. There's a differential. They can go, oh, wow, that was my old way of thinking and doing. I'm not, that's so inconvenient. That's so unfamiliar now. So is that mental health increasing? I would say yes, because now they have the opportunity to analyze their old ways and balance them or set them against these new ways to find balance. It's like, yeah, I still kind of believe that same way, but I'm not going to let it affect my internal alignments. And then I can actually change my perspective of it and the way I perceive it. And then I can actually operate in a much more harmonious, which is agreement with Earth, with my surroundings. So I can navigate through, and I'll call it, I can navigate through untouched. It's not like you're not trying to go invisible. People think that, oh, well, if I'm just not seen, then then it won't affect me. No, jump in, get muddy, get dirty, get sweaty, get in there, be a part of this, be a part of the system of Earth, but have control over how you let it affect you. And that's power. And that's untouchable, because if an outside influence can't knock you off your game, we'll call it. I'm riding a horse downtown, people honk at me, people wave and say hi, and I'm indifferent. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just trying to say, by practicing this, I can actually be untouchable. Me and my horse can cruise through there and maintain a feedback loop of energy exchange regardless of outside influences. And that gives a sense of power, because then I can realize, wow, there is opportunity in anything that looks as a value judgment bad. I have clients that they're horse people, and somebody lets a dog out, they panic. Oh, my horse, he's going to be scared. It's like, oh wow. I mean, think of think of all the generations in past that utilized horses to do what they did, and a dog was around and they panicked. But needless to say, that is a real thought, feeling, attitude, action, and an intention that they're not in control of. It's an outside influence is determining how they're going to operate, and then that's a feeling of powerlessness. So that leads into other things. And when a person feels powerless, a lot of those five main areas of life go into decline. Mental and physical health goes into decline. Relationships, happiness, all go into decline. Most systems that are created before we popped onto the planet, I'm only 50 years old, so this stuff's been going on a lot longer than I've been here. Those systems are destructive. And you said it earlier. It looks like that's what we're supposed to do, because if you get the good grades and you get the degree and you get the job and you get the house and you get the fine car and you get the whatever, the script that was laid out, and people just march right into it without questioning it can be scary, because at one point in that person's life, they're going to, and I know this because I coach them, they're going to sit down and go, man, I got more money than I'll ever spend before I die. I've got everything that I want, and I still want, but I don't know what it is that I want. And then we start down this pathway. And that's where I tell people, you'll jump on this path. You may not even know what you want, but the path becomes clear. And when you start changing your inner alignments and that resonance frequency attracts what it is you truly want. Horsemanship, it's a gateway.
Yeah. I think one thing you mentioned that is important to note is just the idea of destruction. You kind of talked about it in a political way. Like, yes, maybe your opinions are correct, but your hyper focus and intensity on it is literally destroying you. And I think that's something that we ignore. Like, like we can get the car in the house and we're destroyed inside, but it's what we were told to do. It was the path we were told to follow. And so it's almost going again about to that awareness. How are the things you are doing serving you? And not just physically, but especially spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And we've been very well conditioned to ignore that, right? Like you talked about, you have to raise your hand to go to the bathroom. Like we ignore everything until we can't anymore. And so just that idea of being aware of what are the consequences, what is the cause and effect of the choices you're making, if you can step outside the programming we've been given and really step out and say, is this beneficial? Is this helping me? And a lot of things are maybe not what we thought that they would be if we step outside. And you also talked a little bit about how people don't question these things a lot. And I think that is true. And I think the other part of that is maybe you do question, and then everything around you says, this is the answer. The same thing you've been told to do, that's the answer. Because it's not spoken about as much, it's not pushed as much, it's not as just all surrounding us, those answers that, maybe there is a different way. Maybe you do need to question this. Maybe you need to try something and fail. Maybe you need to see if, how your horse reacts and that it doesn't bolt, and you need to have that practice seeing that there's other ways than the way that it turned out this one time that you go back to or that you've been told time and time again.
My favorite question on anything I'm uncertain on is who is going to benefit from this information? Them or me? Who's it going to benefit? So if we look at something, or we look at a group of people and they think a certain way and they're chanting a certain thing, I'll look at them and I'll just question that. Maybe they're right, but I'm like, who's it benefiting for them to do that? Are they
Yeah.
useful idiots for some reason? Do I want to join in with them? Am I going to be a useful idiot too? Or do I question who's benefiting from this taking place? When that starts to be the question, then you can actually realize the impacts of the outside world. And I will say this: no one can understand the outside world until they understand themselves, because we don't, as humans, we do not see the world as it is. We see it as we are. And I'll explain this. A horse will do something. He'll kick out at me, and I'll giggle. I'll think it's funny, like, that's cool, because I'm focused on what I'm asking him, and that doesn't deter me. But then you take another person, horse kicked at him, they're done. Oh no, it's dangerous. I'm out. That horse is too dangerous. Can't help him. Euthanasia. I mean, not that extreme, but that's the kind of
Can get to that point. Yeah.
it
Hmm.
gets down that train. I've seen where it goes, and it's like, wow, he just kicked out. I choose to look at that as something to laugh at, and then
Yeah.
continue on with a system that I know works, and that'll fall away because I don't put energy or attention into that. I put energy into, wow, look how well he's moving in a circle, or I got to develop a deeper understanding of this individual as to why that took place. Rather judge that, I'd rather love. Let's just go to love. Let's help him be comfortable if he's not comfortable. Let's just keep going. One instance isn't going to determine the whole session. So you look at that in the real world, people will see the world and say, this is how it is. And then you have a totally different person say, well, this is how it is. And then you can get a deeper understanding of, like, they're looking at it the way they are. They're not looking at it for what it is, because
Yeah.
it's a resonance frequency. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. When I'll just speak from me. When I am in alignment, thoughts, emotions, attitude, intention, action, and I present to the horse in purest present form, and then I'm willing to receive information or energy back, and I'm willing to make necessary changes for desirable results and present again, and then I get that circular flowing. There's no time, it goes away. That's why they kind of say, barn time. You think you're there an hour, it's 5 hours. because
Mm-hmm.
you're actually in present moment.
Mm-hmm.
You're exchanging energy. It's flowing. It's not distorted, and you're actually into a resonance transformation with nature, with so many things. But we'll just say nature, all encompassing nature. You understand the principles of the universe. You know, what you think about, you bring about. That's like an understood understanding, correspondence, how things work together, vibration. Everything vibrates, high, low, fast, slow. All the polarity, one extreme to the other. Where something ends, something else begins. Cause and effect. And then here's probably the single most important principle in horsemanship. I left out rhythm, but I didn't forget it because rhythm's going to be difficult for traditional training in horsemanship to be understood, because rhythm, people try to force it. Rhythm has to be felt. But if there's one thing that's really important that's missing in horsemanship, and it's an imbalance, they'll never get rhythm. They'll never feel it. And that's principle of gender, the masculine, the feminine energy that we all possess. A man has masculine and feminine energy. A woman, same. A horse, same. Doesn't matter. Everything has it. You can't have it and create something. It takes both. The giving and the receiving, the breathing in of air, the breathing out of air. Create life in yourself. If you breathe in and hold it, you're going to die. If you breathe out and don't take any more, you're going to die. You won't create life anymore. So the rhythm of breathing in and breathing out, the balance of masculine and feminine energy in horsemanship has to be balanced. Traditional training practices have taught masculine energy really, really high. A horse is going to not to realize that very quick and get out of rhythm. Transfer chain that down, they're going to try to force it into rhythm, force the relationship into rhythm, either in mechanics or in movement. It doesn't matter. It's forced. Rhythm gets off. Correspondence of how things work together doesn't work. You know, it's like we explained earlier. Nothing living wants to be obstructed, irritated, created into a forced submission, pain. It causes resistance. Definitely leads to rebellion. So whenever we can analyze all these down, distill them down into a vibrational frequency of energy exchange and nature with horses in alignment, that's the key that unlocks the creation of conscious awareness, soul expansion, growth, a deeper knowing of self to realize what's going on around you. And then you have the ability to dominate in the true sense, not dominate forced compliance. So people are half right. So and I like to encourage listeners, like, you're half right. It's okay. Don't think I'm judging people or bashing traditional training practices. We had to go through them to know not to do them. I mean, it's just that Earth is set up that way. You have to go get sunburned to know not to go get sunburned. You know, it's not that it's wrong. It's a learning experience. People are hard on themselves because they've been taught conform to this programming and conditioning, or you're a loser. Memorize this, take the test, get 100. If you don't, you're a loser. Those are illusions. They're fabricated to create forced compliance through control. And when a person realizes, I don't want to vibrate in that frequency anymore, I want a resonance transformation, and they come into horsemanship the correct way, then they start to gain a power over themselves to where the old self's unfamiliar and inconvenient. The new self is exciting, and the unknown is embraced. And then the things that have been behind a locked door, you found a key, and you open it, and you walk through, and then there's a whole nother room. It's like, oh my gosh, what else is there? Then curiosity peaks. And the horse loves it when your curiosity peaks, because then the horse can actually help you stay in that resonance frequency, because they're pattern recognition machines. Whenever you start thinking in a way, feeling in a way, a horse picks up on that pattern. Well, when you stop, that's when they recognize a change. So then they'll non-verbally indicate something. It's a message. And if a person, that's why a coach is important that knows these things with horses. Myself, person, I can say, hey, this is what's happening. That's why that happened. And then they see it, and then they believe it, and then they start going, whoa, okay, I mean, I've had them just kind of back up and start crying, emotional breakthroughs, and they're like, this would have never happened any other way. It's like, I know, it was in the works for 20 years. Now you came to the crossroads or the intersection where opportunity and preparedness came together. Some people call that luck, but they got lucky. They came together at the right time, and they got that information or energy at the right time. It's the catalyst for them to change. That's the power of horsemanship. It's missed. It's missed so many times by me. I've missed it so many times trying to go traditional, always looking outward, caving to the programming and conditioning of even our industry. It's like, I mean, I had to do things sometimes where it's like, man, this is going to be so uncomfortable to do. But I did it. And now I look back and go, wow, I'm thankful I did that. I mean, like creating my bitless bridle. So many of my peers were like, what are you doing? That's so dumb.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well,
Yeah.
it probably is, but I don't know. I'm going to do it. 'Cause
Okay.
I think it's nice for the horse. I trade
Yeah.
places with my horse and treat him like I'd want to be treated. I'd want to wear that rather than a bit. So that's what I'm going to do. And oh my gosh, man, that thing's gone all over the world. I get messages from people all over the world. Just that one little thought that I changed from the mainstream way of thinking has such a compounding effect, and it adds to the amalgamation of all the choices and thoughts and behaviors that I did based on that one thought, to where people come into this gate and they ride one of my 8 horses with a bitless bridle, and they're like, they don't even really know that there should have been a bit. But as we go down the transfer chain of a resonance transformation in them, their different thinking and their different feeling, that is a definitely a correspondence there. They're like, wow, you built this bridle so it doesn't hurt the horse. I was like, yeah, it takes that one variable out of the equation to equal an outcome that we're trying to go get. If my horse is focused on force compliance and then pain is involved, it deteriorates the way that we're trying to go in that direction. They can't think in this vibrational frequency. They can't feel because their attention went straight to that force compliance. So that creates resistance, causes resentment, which leads to rebellion. So the process and procedures that have led over the past 20 years to what we're doing today, it starts to let me know, wow, the invisible realm was at work here. And we can take it a little further. I mean, people haven't even questioned, like, where did the car come from? I mean, they didn't question. There's kids today that don't even question where the cell phone came from. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
always here. No, it started with a thought. Somebody had to think a thought, and then it had to resonate in a frequency to become a physical reality. But then there was an amalgamation of a lot of people thinking a thought, oh, I can make the tires. Oh, I can make the air conditioner. Oh, I can make the seats. I can make this. All these thoughts started joining in that same, we'll call it energy. And some people would look at that, oh, that's so destructive. Look how many people die in car wrecks. Some people would look at it as that's very constructive. Look how efficiently we can move product and people and all that. So there's two realms. They're living in two different realities. And it's choice. And then you get enough people thinking and feeling in certain ways, it gets bigger. So then the airplane, I mean, all these things that are made physical that we see, they hadn't always been here.
Yeah.
So it's like, and they're not bad. It's a value judgment. They're not wrong. They're
Oh,
not
yeah. I
right.
mean, it's interesting because everything is both good and destructive, just like you said with the car, right? In some cases, it's devastating that someone had a car in their life because it took their life. In other cases, it allows people to visit their loved ones. It allows people to travel.
Yeah.
So
And
just
then
about
we look at,
everything has kind of that
yeah,
good
and
and dark side.
it's never in balance. It's trying to be. It's like nuclear power. It could power a whole city or it could destroy that very city. And it's the people choosing to think and feel and do in a certain way that determine the outcome of that. So, one simple analogy, if you have a cup of water and it's dirty water, and you have an endless amount of clean water, how do you get the dirty water out? You just pour more clean water in until it cycles it out, right? That's kind of a silly little analogy, but if you want to utilize something good, value judgment good, you start pouring into that thing good. So, like, I don't want to go fight the wrong. I don't want to focus on something I don't want. I don't want to change an industry that I'm part of in a manner that's destructive, irrelevant, or waste my time. I'm going to create from a realm that exists of infinite choices. I'm going to create a way to add more good to it. And there'll be so much good in it that the bad falls away, that the horse kicking out will fall away. See? So that's the power of mental health.
Yeah.
Focus on what you do want, not on what you don't want.
Yeah.
That's how it works. That's how we grow and become something we're not. You know, you take average and you start polishing it and making it better. Well, you just have a little bit better than average. But you take it away and rebuild something, a whole new identity. It doesn't even, it's not even recognizable with the old. But see, we didn't focus on, like, say, alcohol. Somebody wanted to quit drinking. I teach them, don't focus on that. Not doing it, staying out of it, stop doing it. Replace that with something you do want to do. Oh, I want to go paddleboarding. Okay, cool. Every time you think you want to go drink, go paddleboarding. And then paddleboard the best and put your time and energy focusing on paddleboarding. And then, like, yeah, jump in and swim, get back up, do some more paddleboarding. And then go home. And then do it again. Repetition. First day is a concept day and horsemanship. Second day is a what's what. What did the horse retain? What do I got it better at teaching them? Showing them. Third day is polishing. So then the cause is thought. I want to quit drinking. Okay, great. Don't focus on that anymore. Replace it with what you do want and then compound it. Take 3 days to let the concept come. It's like creating the car. The guy didn't create a car overnight, and he didn't focus on what he didn't want the car to do. He focused on what he wanted it to do.
Yeah. I think that's another super important point that you brought up. It's also something I definitely changed my perspective on, which is that it's a process to get to these places. So a lot of times we hold a lot of judgment for ourselves and beat ourselves up. And we even talked about that with the horses. That's one reason the horses help so much is because they don't really care. They don't have that judgment. They are just focused on your energy, intention, how you are feeling, how it makes them feel. Um, and so a lot of times we are so worried about failing. We're so worried about being perfect right away, getting the perfect grades, getting the perfect job, and so fearful of failure that we forget it is a process to get to the end point, to get to a better point. It's never going to be a straight, perfect line.
It's not
It's
linear.
going to be yeah, it's going to be something that, there's going to be times that we're like, oops, did that wrong. And now I know that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not linear. That's one of the beautiful things about this life is it's not linear. Uh, the horsemanship has taught me to not have unrealistic expectations as far as preconceived notions of how a session should go with me and my horse. Because I said this in the first book, the same man never sits on the same horse twice. So each day, and I teach this in horsemanship school, each day we break that into 4 seasons. Have I told you this before?
I don't know about the Four
Okay.
Seasons.
Your morning is your spring, your midday is your summer, your evening is your fall, and then night is winter or
Hmm.
death, the dying. And then the next day, you get a new day, you
Hmm.
get 4 more seasons. The reason that I explain it this way and it'll circle back into why what you just said, kind of contribute to what you just said. The the horse may operate really good in the morning in the spring, and then we're expecting, as far as a realistic expectation, we're not having it. It's not realistic to expect him in the afternoon to perform in that manner, because if we were paying attention, days and days ago, yeah, he performed really well in that afternoon, but we didn't really realize that it was that time of day. And then, well, we only have time this morning to replicate that experience. Wow, he's not doing real well. People are the same way. Some operate real good in the morning, some operate real good in the evening, some midday. So it's like the correspondence. How am I going to perform at the time of day, at the season of the day? Brings into the relevance of what is perfect. See, if it was linear, it'd be easy, but it's not. It's not the same. It's the timings are different, so it's not going to be perfect. So then what do we want? Well, we want consistency. We want awareness. We want to go, okay, I'm going to take 3 days to teach this concept to a horse. Well, I probably should take note of what time of day we're doing it. And I should intimately know this horse is really alert and wanting to learn at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. I need to know that. Well, that would probably be the most opportune time to show him this. But if I don't have time to do it at that time, okay, let's take into consideration that he just might not be on his game at the time that I can do it. So a realistic expectation is, let's just be consistent in what we're showing, regardless of the expectation of perfection, which I'm not sure there's anything. I mean, it's perfectly imperfect. That'd be the way to
Yeah.
describe
Right. It is a bit of a myth, right?
Yes, but it's a consistency thing is what I show people at school, because we'll do a reining exercise and incorporate leg cues in, and they'll get it perfect, and then they'll come back and they'll try that very thing again, and it's not perfect. Well, then I show them, look, we got to factor in some variables. It was sunny and 75 the day that you were doing that. Today it's 59. You're bundled up. It's cold. Your muscles are slower. It's a different time of the day. I mean, all these variables that factor in to equal an outcome of a preconceived notion or unrealistic expectation. That's where that's where humans get sidetracked because of that control. It's like, wait, what if we just navigate with what we have? Oh wow, we're on a boat. It's calm as glass. We can make 40 knots. Oh, now today it's wavy. We can only do 11 knots. Do I need to get all bent out of shape because it's not perfect? No. Horses are great at adapting. People can adapt too, but they still need to develop that inner knowing of what they'll do as a circumstance arise, what system they have created to navigate efficiently, effectively, in harmony, which is agreement with nature. Horses are the best way to really showcase that in a present moment energy exchange frequency, because cause and effect are so close. And that's the power of the horse. I've seen so many things with horses and people and the crossovers that cannot be replicated in four walls of therapy. They can't be duplicated in like a classroom. You can't ever do it on a computer. I mean, it's impossible. It can't be digitized. I don't think it could ever be digitized. And I give some really simple examples in the second book, but it's almost like, I think I gave this example in the first book I was getting ready to give, but it's like eating ice cream. If you've never had it and I try to tell you all about it, you're not going to understand that. Hey, it's chocolate. You never had that. It's sweet. What's sweet? Well, it's really cold too. What's that? If you don't know and try to read or watch a video about it, it's so tough. Because I get in a lot of conversations with people about what we do. and I watch the glaze over look in their eye, and then I just kind of trail off, because they can't
Yeah,
get it.
nothing like experiencing it, that's for sure.
No.
Yeah. There was one other thing that kind of popped up, kind of a correlation that I made. We have been talking a lot about how fear is a driving force in the choices that we make, and that often leads us to not great places because we're making those choices out of fear. But I also just thought as you were talking about it, like we have this fear drive that we are functioning by a lot of the time. And that's one thing when you go in with the horses, it kind of questions that, throws it off balance a little bit, disrupts it so that we have those, again, it's hard to put into words, but we just have that insight into maybe how we need to live different or how we can approach the world differently. And then you mentioned, someone asked, well, what's in it for the horse? And I thought we are able to give the same thing to them where we can kind of disrupt their fear drive because they come, especially Mustangs, they come into this human world where everything is new and totally different, unknown. And depending on the way we approach it, we can kind of give them that wisdom for them to live in the human world, which is the same thing that they give to us when we spend time with them is the wisdom of how to live better. So I thought that was a pretty interesting correlation that I hadn't necessarily thought about before about how we're almost able to mutually disrupt each other's fear.
Yeah. Yeah, and fear is so misunderstood. Fear is natural. It's something we have to have. Otherwise, you just
Yeah.
go run and jump off a cliff and be like, "Oh, I don't fear it. I'm just jumping. It's over." Anytime fear rears its head, it's generally because of wanting or lack of. So, fear of wanting is really easily defined. If you could sit down and define what you're wanting, the fear is easier to manage. That's what I mean to say. And if you realize you're not lacking anything, you don't have that fear of wanting. In other words, you look at another person and you want what they have, you fear you'll never get it. It's at the end of the day, sit down and go, well, what would you do if you got it? And then a lot of people will, if they're honest, they'll answer, I don't know if it even change anything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just make assessments. And that's what horsemanship's real good about helping people do is go inward, make these assessments. People are like, oh, I want to be rich. And it's like, okay, what would you do if you got it? And then we go down that transfer chain and they're like, oh man, I don't really want to be rich. I just want to look rich. It's like, yeah, there's a big difference because being it, you got to change your resonance frequency. You got to think different. You got more responsibility. You
Mm,
got to manage
mm-hmm.
things. It can turn into a big headache. And the richer you are, the more headache you're going to have. If you want that, good. And you knowingly go into it, great, go get it. But the wanting piece, the fear of lack, the what do they call that? The scarcity mindset. People are fear, I've got it, now I'm going to lose it. It's like, at the end of the day, what are you really losing? And then that's where a person can go inward, especially with horses, and realize it's just how I choose to look at it, how I choose to think about it, how I choose to feel about it. And most people don't question it. And here's why. Horsemanship reveals this to a lot of people. They're like, man, I never even knew the question to ask. I was wanting answers to things, but what horses showed them is like, I needed to look at the question to ask. So that's probably more important. Like, let's find the question to ask. Well, how do we do that? Well, you start an energy exchange with the horse and you start to discover yourself. You start to study yourself and then you start to master yourself. Then you can reach a determination of the outside world that makes sense. I won't want to use the word understand because once you do, you definitely don't get understanding of anything. You're not going to submit yourself to an authority above you. You're going to overstand. You're going to realize, wait, this system was here before I got here. And it's perpetuated by thinkers, feelers, and doers. Do I want to align with them? Or do I want to make an assessment on myself, shift perspective? You see, horses love to show us different perspectives of things. Love it. In a proper energy exchange. And that's the secret that I love unlocking in different horses, because it's an unknown. It hasn't been revealed yet. It's an unknown. So it's like, I'm going to use this system to create desirable results that I fabricated over 20 years, built over 20 years, structured it, refined it. I can implement it on any horse, with any person, to discover what that individual horse at that time, the intersection of being prepared and opportunity, willingly lets over and reveals. Because it's a frequency, and it might even be a 1/1,000,000th of a frequency different than that horse, but it's different. And that's what I mean. They're not all the same. They're individuals. So when you tap into this, you'll want to play with every horse you can get your hands on, for one. But even the same horse, you can start entering. What I do is enter in another person, and then the frequency changes within that horse to that person. That's why the relationships are unique to horse and person. I'm going to be different because I'm vibrating at a different frequency than even you. My pressures will be different. My timing will be different. My masculine, feminine energies are different. I mean, it's different. And those horses pick up on that resonance. And that's why they're curious. They're like another human. They smell different. They move different. They send off a different energy. And then when we can capture that curiosity and let them operate in that curiosity for an extended period of time, they'll give over things that you can't traditionally train them to give over. And it's so tough. I love letting people feel it in real time, and then we come to a stop exercise. It's just within the system that I created. Stop exercise allows processes and procedures to catch up in both horse and human, and then breathe, and then relax mental and physical tension, and then create a pattern that the person recognizes and the horse recognizes, so then they can build something. And then they can do it away from the horse to process information that comes along every day. And then if they're in the resonance frequency of being able to control those 5 things we want in alignment, 5 elements of alignment, then they have power, and they have capability. And then they can actually see, all these terms get thrown around. They can heal. It's like, man, I don't know if they were ever. I'm almost sure they weren't even broken. They just forgot some things. So I'll say they can remember. And then the outside looking in will go, oh, he healed. Okay.
Yeah.
He healed.
Just a term we use to explain what's happening that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes is difficult to explain beyond words. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about, because we are talking about mental health and horses, a little, and I think we're both here because we both personally experienced how horses can change our lives for the better. And I think it's great for people to hear, like, you weren't always where you are today, right? Like, life was chaotic for you, just like it is for so many of us. Do you want to talk a little bit about that at all and how the horses help change that for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's just proof. That's all it is that we'll talk about.
Yeah.
We pop into Earth, and my oldest memory, I guess, because like when my parents divorced, I started questioning things because for some reason the 2 people you love the most, they split up. Kicked me into a survival mindset.
Yeah. Throws your world upside down.
Yeah, like, okay, I've got to start figuring this out. This just got real. And then new people come in, step parents and whatnot, and you look at life from a different perspective, like you said. So then you start realizing, or I started realizing, okay, I can actually think. Okay, I popped onto Earth. I have this body. I can move around. I can gather information. I can think. It's kind of like a video game. There's video games out there that derive off of an actual life event.
Mm-hmm.
You gather information, and information is energy. So you're gathering said information, and it's either contributing or detracting, destructive. But that's how you learn. So it's like the system that we're born into teaches judgment, a lot of judgment. You
Mm-hmm.
do this, conform to this, or you're bad. Do this, conform to this, or you're not going to make it. A little fear added into there and all that. So, uh,
Yeah.
and then I would hear terms like, well, if they told you to jump off a bridge, would you do it? And I'd be like, no, that's why I did what I did. It was like, no, that's the wrong answer. You need to do what they're doing. You're supposed to sit in the class and you're supposed to just nod your head. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
all right. Um, so all this to say is I went and tested the fibers of humanity. I mean, I literally went and did things that they told me not to do, and I intentionally did it because they told me not to do it. And there's some validity to what they were saying, like don't drink, okay. I'm going to do it anyway because if you ask them like, well, what's it like? They're not going to sit you down and tell you the whole transfer chain. Like, oh yeah, you're going to drink. 40 years later, you're going to be a raging alcoholic, broke, divorced, whatever. They're not going to go through.
Yeah.
So summarizing, about oldest memory of getting a horse was 5 years old. I mean, I had him when I was 0, but 5 years old, had this little pony. And when the world was just like chaos, and I was like, man, I don't know how to figure this stuff out. Be 10 years old, 11 years old. I'll go play with my horse. And then everything just kind of like balanced, as close to balance as it could get. It's the best descriptive word I could describe it. And then I would realize, wow, if I can just align in this feeling, this thought, this energy, I could rule the world. However, at that young of an age, there's no discipline isn't there. Self-discipline, definitely. The the deeper knowing of things isn't there. But then on the other hand, maybe it is there, and I went into the society. 10 from age 10 to 20. That's a really impactful decade on a person because
Yeah.
you're going through school, middle school, high school, um, and you're really trying to navigate the system. And it's been going on and perpetuated for a lot longer than a 20-year-old lifespan. But the horses were just this piece, a fractal at best in those days, that I could cling to and go, well, that's where the answers are. But I don't have time, or I've got to go do this, and I have to conform to society and program and conditioning. Oh, I got married at 21, so now I got to get a job, work, and then children, and then all these life things come in. But it's like, okay, what do we do with in the horsemanship world, mental health piece today, based on past experiences for future generations and future experiences? And it's like there is a pathway. There is a man. It is so simple and easy to see, but then I realize why people don't have access to it. See, with more knowledge, developing wisdom, there's a responsibility. And there's a biblical verse. It's like, don't cast pearls before swine. And I often wondered, like, what's that exactly mean? But it's something that's sacred, and it's a information or energy that it's not that it's hidden or secret. It's just that the people haven't got into the correct alignment to receive it. So until that takes place, that's why a horse will not give over until the person gets in alignment. They won't reveal this energy, this information, until that person gets in alignment. So at a very young age, uncorrupted by programming and conditioning, my horse did reveal it. But then I still chose to step away and go into the programming and conditioning of society. I mean, I got the mortgage. I did the car payments. I did all the things that could tell me you should do if you want to get ahead. All this stuff. And like,
Mm-hmm.
this society creates a competitive mindset on purpose. Competition is not bad per se, but whenever you start to connect the dots and why they want you to compete, compete for that job, compete for those grades, compete for that status, then there's a system that is built upon that competitiveness and for purpose. Get more dollars than the next guy. Don't like them because they're this and they're that. Compete. See, in horsemanship, there's no competition other than the other side of horsemanship where there is. If the horse takes second place to the competition, we're gonna compete against you. Da, da, da. What I'm talking about is when you go into an energy exchange and a relationship with a horse, it's not competitive.
Yeah.
You're not competing against anyone because there's no way you could. It's a resonance transformation you're going through as a person. To compete with somebody in that, it wouldn't work. You're like, well, I'm going to compete with you so that I can have better thoughts. It's not. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And it'd be kind of fruitless to try to compete in that because it's distortion. Competition distorts it. It's one of those mechanisms that causes imbalance in the masculine feminine energy. It's like it's forced rhythm. So like you and I, let's compete in breathing. Say, Lisa, I'm going to breathe better than you. Let's just compete.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Uh, so my childhood to today, um, I could not complain about anything right now. Zero. Back then I could. And then I wondered, well, why would I complain about that? As you get older and you grow, you look back on yourself and you're like, man, I was such a loser in that. Why did I do that? But then if you love yourself today, you go, wow, I had to go through that. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have
It's a
learned it.
path you had to take.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
wouldn't have learned that. So all of the people that come through here, some of them feel like they're worthless or they're broken. Some of them they want to end it. They want out. They want done. They're done.
Yeah.
I want out. And it's like, well, wait. Uh, what perspective are you looking at yourself? Are you looking at your 20-year ago self, and then it's compounded over time because you never changed the story that you attach that thought and emotion to? Oh man, that's easy fix. You die every day. You're new. We can renew your mind every
Mm.
day, shift it into a different mindset. By playing with this horse, you'll see, I'll show you. You can actually think different. You can breathe different. You can consciously relax your shoulder. When you feel a little tension, you can take a break. You don't have to get into this competitive mindset. So me coming from where I came from to today, I got to see, oh wow, that was necessary. But how I choose to look back at that could determine how I'll feel and be tomorrow. So
Yeah.
what we do today prepares us for tomorrow. But learning these things, vibrating at a different frequency, gives you an opportunity to look at the past and it from a different perspective. And that's power, man, because a lot of people don't know that they can even do that. They haven't ever asked the question, like, could I look at my past self from a different perspective? I mean, who goes around asking that, right?
Yeah.
And you don't know what you truly want to know until you're on the path of the unknown. And that's a scary thing for a lot of people. And people fall back into what's familiar, they fall back into what's comfortable, and it's generally a deconstructive pattern. And our society has created that with an intention that's not so pure. And I'm not bashing our society. I love America. I love it here. I love Earth. I love the opportunity to learn what we're speaking of on this podcast. But horsemanship allows people to experience it in a real time and I don't want to say like a safe environment because that's I'm not into
It's
this.
not always even safe.
Yeah, and I'm not even
There's some
talking about.
inherent risk.
I'm not
Yeah.
talking about like physically getting hurt safe. I'm talking
Hmm.
about it's not safe. It's not
Mm,
safe in a way that people think of safe. It's it's destructive. It's you're going to tear down old
mm,
patterns and behaviors, and it's you're going to go inward in the silence with a horse, and it's so freaking violent. You will be so violent on yourself because you're trimming and shaving the old you off, and it's dead, so you're getting rid of it anyway, and you're becoming something so new and beautiful. But it's a transition period. It's not snap of a finger. But I have really streamlined it down a lot over the 20 years to where it's pretty quick in a relative of time. You know,
mm-hmm,
it's months. It's not decades. We'll just say it like that because it's resonance transformation. It's resonance in thought, resonance in feeling, resonance in an attitude, resonance in an action, and then recognizing the pattern, implementing a system to create what you want to become. And see what horses love about that. Here's what gets them so attracted. They're like, okay, I I wouldn't have followed this guy. Talking to me, Justin. They don't say this to me, but if they could talk, they would say this. I wouldn't follow you for who you were when you walked in here today. I'll follow you because who you're trying to become. I will follow you for your progression towards your true identity. I'll help you get there. I'll be part of that. But the second that you fall back into something familiar, comfortable, and they won't, they're not judges, but they'll just kind of fade off. They'll kind of glaze over in the eyes and taper off until you're ready. And that's what the field will do. That's what the universe will do too. It'll wait. It's not in a hurry. It's not in competition. The second you get in alignment, you start attracting, and the universe is like, I'll give it. But the second that you kind of fall back into the old, comfortable, familiar self, that's not your true identity, you won't attract it. You'll just be in wanting or in lack or scarcity mindset to the point where it's destructive.
yeah. What advice do you have for someone who is maybe just starting down a different path, whether that's kind of questioning where they're at or maybe are just in a dark place where they don't know how to move forward? What advice do you have? Maybe they can't come to your school specifically. What can they do to start shifting that mindset, to start moving in a better direction, developing better systems? What are some things you'd encourage them to do?
Well, one of the things is stop looking outward. Most of the things that you will construct will be in the silence of your own self. Outward, it's a contributing factor at best. Inward, it's a determining factor because you will feel resonance change. It's not something that anyone can do for you. Like I tell my guys, I can't ride your horse for you. You got to ride your own horse. I can coach you, and then that's probably a beneficial suggestion is get a coach, someone unbiased. A coach that will really want to help you understand. There's that understand word. Help you inner know yourself.
Yeah.
Not rise to any kind of challenge that's been set for other people to do and they saw progress in it. It's more a coach that's going to help you be accountable for being you. The self discovery you, the self mastery of you, the self study. Um, that fear is the I said it in the first book, but all those interviews I did with people, the fear is the common denominator. And to cope with fear is not going outward, it's going inward. And then realizing what you want to focus on. Focus on that. I never thought I'd be an author of a book. I never thought I'd be a writer. But if you can write it down and like anything that comes to top of mind that you don't want to forget, like if you're in the shower and like, I got this idea, I mean, hold that idea, get out, write it down, put it in your phone notes.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I'll write it down too. I've got a little memo pad because you're the CEO of your body. You're the CEO of your mind. And I encourage you to write a mission statement for yourself because I coach a lot of corporate guys and they all got these mission statements for their companies. But it's like, yeah, like what is your mission statement? What is your own personal one that you will not detour from? And it can change too. It's not like you have to have it and that's stuck forever. I've changed mine like 5 or 6 times, but it's
Yeah.
one that you can just focus on, and like outside influences are not going to bump you off of it. And you define that for yourself because that's the truth. That's not. No one else is going to care anyway what your mission statement is. They don't. So go inward, go silent, come up with a mission statement, and then implement a purpose and then a plan, a flexible plan, and then take action. And a lot of people try to do too much too fast, too soon. And in horsemanship, you get in trouble quick. You put too much too soon, too fast on a horse, it unravels. There's incremental plans. So people will do this. They'll say, "Well, I tried it 2 or 3 times." And it's like, "What? It didn't work?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Well, in horsemanship, if you try it 2 or 3 times, you haven't even scratched the surface. You got to try it like 25, 30, 40 times. And that's what I teach in the 5-part series. A series of 5 questions we ask any and every horseman when we first meet them. And then we have a stop exercise, trigger body response to relaxation in both horse and human. And then you analyze your near past. What could I do different for the near future of the 5-part series that I'm going to do again? And in that series gives you information to transfer to the second series, to the third series. So if you stop at 3, man, you're missing. You scratched the surface. You got to keep mining, keep digging. So you do 5 to 7, you actually have a picture starting to be painted on a blank canvas. You're like, oh wow, this picture's forming. And then you do 10 to 12 5-part series. And they're not fast. They're slow and easy and mental and physical tension applied and then relax. So model that same thing in your transformation, in your resonance transformation, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what your attitude is, what your intentions are, and what your actions become. Because whatever you think about, you bring about. What we are thinking, we're becoming. We're forming habits, creating a character. And the character is pretty much what's going to define your destiny. If your character can't be pushed off its path, pretty strong character, we'll call it. That's the key. It's the key to the resonance transformation. It's becoming your true self, your true character. And that will determine your destiny. You want to be rich? Go be rich. Go inward. Think different. Feel different. Be different. Become. Form habits in that. If it's constructive, continue. Destructive, learn, change it. Don't judge. Stay in the love frequency because we're here on earth navigating just like everybody else. If we love ourselves, we're loving our neighbors. If you want love, you got to learn how to love. If you want to be loved, you got to learn how to be loved. It's not like it's just going to happen. So no judgment. And that opens up that conduit to become different than what you are today. It's just a transformation. It's a transition from where you are to where you want to be. And it starts with tiny little decisions of
Yeah.
thought, compounding over time.
Yeah. And I like going along with that, both your ideas of, every morning you can wake up and be a new person. It's a new day, a new reality for you to live in. And even also that idea you talked about when you're with the horse that like you're going to have to destroy a former self, and almost be reborn in a way. And I think that's just powerful principles to consider. Like you are on this path and you're going to have many rebirths in becoming this new person before you reach your final destination at some point.
One thing you said that got me to remember, and I do this every morning, I don't actually consciously do it every morning because I've done it so much. It's a subconscious thing now. I asked myself for many, many days, many years, do I want to compliment or complain today? And it was just, I mean, literally as the waking, self comes, before my 2 feet would rotate out of bed and hit the floor, I asked that question with intention, consciously ask it. Do I want to complain or do I want to compliment? Do I want to compliment or complain? Either way. And I would pretty much quickly say, I want to compliment, of course. But then there was days I would say, no, I want to complain. I want to complain today. And it's something that a person should do because it is an assessment. It is an awareness development. And literally you will walk out and the first thing you see, compliment or complain. And just don't judge. Just do it. It's like people walk around complaining about things all day long. They've created a repetitive pattern of complaining. They're not even consciously aware of it because they started down that path and compounded it over time, the cause and the effect, and they created character, their destiny, so they complain. The universe is mechanical. It's not moral. So if you're a person's walking around complaining all day, they're going to find a lot more stuff to complain about. It's just going to keep coming. Well, more stuff to complain about. Just got worse.
Yeah.
But if they,
Always something if you're looking for it.
yeah, if they start the day, that springtime, that morning, that rebirth, and they are already going down that transfer chain of I'm going to compliment. It's life changing. It is life changing. And it already sets a resonance frequency at a higher vibration to where, I mean, I can just give you one little brief example. I putter around my farm here and I do stuff. I have clients come in, I'll do some client work, and then I go do my thing. I piddle, I putter, I got a farm to take care of, and I could be doing whatever. Well,
Mm-hmm.
my phone rings the other day, and my wife was on it, and she said, "Hey, the kitchen sink won't drain." And I was like, "Okay, I'll come check it out. Finish up what I'm doing, and I'll be right there." I could choose right then after the phone hang up. I could choose, like consciously go, "Oh man, I don't want to go do that," or I could say, "Hmm, let's go see what opportunity we're going to learn from this. Well, this is an opportunity to learn. Like, wonder what's in store for me. The unknown." So I looked at it in that manner. And it's just such a liberating feeling to be like, yeah, life just stuff's gonna come. And how I choose to look at what comes is going to determine how I operate, what my character will be, or my destiny, what's gonna be. Because I've come to an understanding and man, I don't want to reveal so much out of my new book, but maybe they won't where it came from.
You want to know, you got to get the book.
I know, man. And I even said it earlier. I was like, I'm not gonna reveal that. I'll just say this. That drain thing, it ended up being a 4-hour project. I had to go under the crawl space and cut a pipe, and 10 years of
Oh, man.
accumulated gunk had gotten there. And I had to like create a way to clean it out and do all this. And I got sprayed. And I literally
Yeah.
laughed about it. I was like, I can't believe I'm under my house getting stuff all over me. But it's just
Yeah.
like, if you cannot enjoy what a value judgment of most people would be like, oh, that's bad. If you cannot enjoy that, you'll never appreciate its full depth of good. So that's the life lesson. Coming to Earth, we're going to learn contrast. We're going to go through what we give value judgments of bad experiences. But we would never recognize good ones if we didn't. And we definitely
Yeah.
wouldn't appreciate them in their full depth. So in horsemanship, you get to process that each session, real time, real feelings, real emotions, a layer of reality that exists most people will never tap into. And I truly believe how we choose to operate in a vibrational frequency, how we choose to align to attract that vibrational frequency, that alignment, will determine where we're going next. And all these people have all these ideas. Going to hell, we're going to heaven, we're going to Mars. I don't know. whatever.
Yeah.
How you choose, because see, we have the opportunity to choose. We are co-creators in this
Um,
creation. I mean, I built houses from nothing, so I know that it's like, oh wow, I can actually co-create. Earth is here. This house wasn't. I built it. Now it's here. A lot of many other examples, but that's just one that I'll choose to use here. But how you look at those things will determine what I think, in my opinion, where you're going to, what resonance frequency you're going to vibrate at, where you're going to go next. And it's like, wow, I even have a choice in that? Huh. And it's a remembering.
yeah.
And
And sometimes we don't let ourselves see that. We think that this is just the way I am, or, I can't choose differently. We have a lot more power than we often give ourselves credit for.
yeah. And you said two words or a letter in the word, I am. That's so powerful because well, people that I coach, they pretty much understand I am. But when you say I am happy, that's power. Those words spoke out, even if you think them, but speaking them out loud, when you say I am before whatever, it is a vibrational frequency change. It is a inner vibrational frequency change, an inner knowing. And horses, they pick up on that. I used to walk out into training horses. I'd have 10 a day. And I'd walk out there knowing I had all those horses to train, but I also had a whole bunch of other stuff going on, running ranches and just a lot of stuff. So my brain would be thinking whatever I got to get done today. So my posture, which is an attitude, would change. My shoulders would be tense, so they'd be up. My eyes would be down. My heel strikes the ground really hard, and I'd be walking with a mission or a purpose. And a particular horse I'm going to train would choose to leave, walk away, go away. I haven't even got to the pen yet. And I'd think, stop, come into this present moment, change the thought, change the emotion, change the attitude, which is posture, change the intention, change the action. Horse would walk right to me. And the ego, the old self, the old familiar self's like, it's just coincidence. It's not real. Well, try it again. Don't just try it 3 times. Try it 25 times. Try it 40 times. And as that pattern starts to become, a recognized pattern in yourself and what you present to the world recognizes a pattern too. Alignments start to happen that you don't know about, that most people aren't aware of. And then a resonance frequency happens. And then a transformation takes place. Resonance frequencies are recognized in other vibrations. Horse, person. Attraction takes place. People show up at your door that you could not have called and said, hey, I need XYZ. And they deliver. And you're like, wow. So you're not broken. Just haven't remembered. And to trigger a memory, you got to change vibrational frequency. You got to change the resonance frequency that you think you vibrate at. You feel what your attitude is, what your actions are. Because if you form those habits, it creates that character. And I kind of tend to repeat, but that's what it takes. Even in horsemanship, I'll tell people, you're a broken record. Horses are persistent. And until you make the necessary changes, they're going to persistently do what it is you need to learn. And they'll be like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that makes so much sense. This horse is amazing. They are. They will persistently continue to do that until you learn the lesson. That's a microcosm of the macrocosm. The universe will continue to give you until you learn. You'll keep attracting it. You'll keep repeating it. Because some people will tell me, man, this just keeps happening. I can't catch a break. And it's like, well, let's explore it. And then when they start to realize, wow, I perpetuated this very thing to continue to happen. Universe is like, yeah, I'll keep giving you that until you're ready for
Yeah,
more.
same thing with life. Yeah.
And it works in the good and the bad, we could call it. You keep doing the
Mhm.
good, you keep doing what we call desirable, it keeps giving it. It doesn't, it's mechanical like that. Just like horses, they're mechanical like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably in a nutshell what I could tell people.
Yeah.
And
It's a good
it's
nutshell.
a big nut, a big nutshell, isn't
But
it?
I mean, such a good, I mean, just demonstrates so well there is so much that you can do no matter what your situation is. Obviously, if you have a chance to be with horses, they are great. They can, I think, speed up the process, give you insights a little quicker. But even if you don't necessarily have that opportunity right now, a
Yeah,
lot you can do just on your own
yeah.
internally.
Get in nature. We've been
Yeah.
disconnected from nature with these programming and conditioning. It's anti-nature to do what we've been programmed and conditioned to do. It's in
Yeah.
alignment with some things because the nature of things is nature, the good or the bad, so to speak. But um, and I don't even bash the system. It's not the system's fault, um, and it's not the people in the system really. It's just one of those things that it's here for us to learn. It's something to differentiate. If it didn't exist, we wouldn't get to learn it. So it's kind of a matter of, do you choose to keep perpetuating the same system, contributing to it, or consuming from it? Make the decision. I mean, the choice is ours. We don't have anybody holding a gun to our head, technically. Maybe some people
Yeah.
do. However, most people don't.
Rare cases, but yes.
Yeah, and it's kind of, it's kind of a way to realize we do have choice, and we have an infinite amount of. It's not a linear thing. There's infinite amount of choices, possibilities, and there is a realm that those are stored. It's the same realm that the car was stored in before the car existed. It. I don't want to spoil this book, man, but I'll tell you, it's the same realm of where the first human decided to ride the first horse. Possibility of riding a horse. That's where those choices live. The thought.
Mm,
And then it's just a matter of, there's a little bit of a formula to it, and there's a matter of discovering the formula and implementing it. It's like
yeah.
baking a cake. If you want to bake a certain cake, it's a formula. If you want to live a certain life, it's a formula. And I discovered it through horsemanship. I'm not sure you could do it with dolphins or cats or dogs, but maybe. But it's something I discovered was with horses, and that's where I would definitely send someone. But if they don't have access to horses, it's go within yourself,
Yeah.
know
And a
yourself.
powerful reminder that we're creating our life. You know, not every variable about of it, but many of the variables we have a
Mhm.
lot more control over and power to create what we want than we sometimes believe.
Yeah, it's co-creation. That's the best word because even with horsemanship, you're co-creating something. I don't create it. I don't create the horse's character per se. I can change it. I can help them change it, but I'm co-creating it. Like a horse in a character of calm, quiet thinking mindset. Yeah, I can help co-create that. But but without the horse, I couldn't create it. Is that making
Yeah.
sense? He has to
Hmm.
live. He has to be a part of it. But I could create the opposite, co-create the opposite. He still has to be there
Yeah.
where he's a erratic,
Yeah.
chaotic non-thinker.
Yeah. And co-create is a great word because yeah, there are other people, other variables in
Mhm.
our life, but we have a strong piece of that. Yeah.
I would be a co-creator in a car wreck if you really think about it.
Yeah.
Because if there wasn't another person in another car to crash into, I wouldn't
Right.
co-create a
Yeah.
crash. So blaming them for an accident type thing. It's like, no, we both knew risk and reward. We both got in our vehicles. We both took off. Now, there's other variables that come into it. It's drinking and driving and all that. Transfer chain it down. It's like, yeah, co-creators in the car crash. However, once we started investigating it down, it's like these choices created this circumstance and this opportunity collided with this
Yeah.
preparation, da da da. So it's a resonance frequency thing. And if more people start thinking in a certain way, like, you know, alcohol is not that great. We should all quit. It'll decrease a lot of variables and outcomes that are irrelevant to
Yeah.
what we truly wanted as a destiny. However, there's cycles, there's learning curves, and there's discoveries, and all that. So, I in this little podcast, there's no way I could the short amount. I could never explain it in its full depth. But as we
Yeah.
progress through horsemanship-based life coaching, and exploring the five main areas of life, the universal principles, and then putting those together in real life exchange microcosm situation, it explains a lot of the macro. And then the 5,000-year-old information can be utilized today going forward. And what I'm referring to is like, why does alcohol even exist? That came from the same space the car came from, the thought.
Yeah.
Why did it manifest into a reality? What dark psychology was there? So we start analyzing that. It's like, oh, that had to be there. That's alchemy. The alchemists definitely did that to change the inner composition of a human. For what? For control, for manipulation, for programming and conditioning. And then no one questioned it. So, just touching on some of that, because that'll help mental health. That'll help in mental health, realizing like you're not broken, man.
Yeah.
You just didn't question some things. Now we got an opportunity to question things, make sense of things, release judgment on yourself. Because we popped into this system that's been trucking along for 5,000 years. It's just that we didn't have the correct formula to develop a new character, to
Yeah.
create a new destiny.
And it's a process, and the experiences you have are part of that process.
Mm-hmm.
So, super important points. Anything we haven't covered? Well,
Oh,
I mean, there's lots that we haven't covered, but
yeah.
anything specific we want to cover?
No, I just think it's a pretty cool thing that they're doing horses for mental health, because it's right
Yeah.
up our alley. Being
Yeah.
an ambassador for Kathy and Dave's program, I'm honored to be asked to do it because they're doing great things over there, and that's what I want to
Yeah.
contribute, in a small way that I can. Uh, I typed up something to read. I'll read it if we're ready to close.
Yeah.
I have to get my reading glasses.
All right.
Because this is a pretty cool thing that they're doing. And,
Yeah.
it starts with a thought. This is the year of Fire Horse, and something that I've really paid attention to, solar system and whatnot, energies, alignments. Um, one little spark of a thought can evolve or compound into a raging fire. And
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
go into it in the correct alignment, we can do things, discover things, and master things like within ourselves to create a whole new layer of reality. And I just took two of my horses and rode them up. One was a pack horse and one was a saddle horse, and I rode them in Tractor Supply and went shopping. Turns out we couldn't post the videos because we didn't have the correct permission for the media stuff, but whatever.
Oh,
But
of course.
all that to say is I got to go experience something based on a thought from long ago that I just want to live life to the fullest, experience things that excite me, and maintain a harmony and balance with my horses and nature to do that
Yeah.
efficiently, effectively, safely, and make it a contribution to ourselves and those around us. So I'll read this off. Thank you for listening today. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this conversation, it's that you're not broken. You may just be disconnected. Horses have a way of bringing us back to ourselves. They don't judge, they don't diagnose, they don't label. They reflect the truth we've been carrying, sometimes for years. During Mental Health Awareness Month, I want to remind you that healing doesn't always come from talking. Sometimes it comes from feeling, from breathing, from standing in front of a horse who sees you without your story, without your past, without your armor. If you feel something awakened in you, follow it. If you feel called to this work, show up. Transformation doesn't happen someday. It happens the moment you decide to step forward. To learn more about what we do at American Mustang School or follow the Horses for Mental Health campaign and Samson's Strength Sustainable Veterans Project, you can visit my website, AmericanMustangSchool.com, and then Shayla's probably post those other two websites.
Yep, we'll get all the links up for sure.
Yeah. So I would like to say thank you for being here. And remember, the horse is always ready to meet you exactly where you are. And that is so true. People aren't always ready to meet you exactly where you are.
Right.
But that horse will every single time without fail.
Yeah. And I just want to echo that the reason we are both here is because we have felt the powerful impact horses can have in our lives, especially as we opened ourselves up to learn from them, to be guided in their wisdom. And definitely a reason I'm here is because I want more people to know that that's an option, that going into nature, spending time with horses, finding other people who have also felt those changes in their life, that is an option when you're feeling lost and broken, don't know where to go next, or even just feeling like you should be heading in a different direction. So
yeah, it's beautiful. I love that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here again, Justin.
Yeah.
It's always great to have you on. Always great to talk about all things horses and the things that we're learning. And just thank you for the work that you're doing and the way you share that. As we mentioned, you're going to have a book coming out. So if people want to dive more into your thoughts and the things that you've learned, that's a great way to do that. If it's out, we'll include a link. But if not, we'll definitely have the link to your website where I'm sure that they can find information for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for being here, for advocating for the horses, for the power of that they have in our lives, and sharing with people that there is a different way to live life, to approach horses. That was a huge thing for me. You definitely gave me the confidence that, like, I didn't feel great about a lot of the traditional training methods, and you're like, you don't have to do that. You know, you can feel like something's wrong for you. And if you're feeling that internally, that's probably true. And there are other people out there that can help guide you, support you, encourage you along the way. And you're definitely one of those people. So thanks again for being here.
Oh, thank you, Sheila. Happy to be here. And yeah, the book comes out in May. That's the plan.
Thank you for joining us and learning about horses that heal and the humans who help them. We hope you'll continue with us on this journey. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and follow The Touch of a Mustang on any of the major social media outlets. Please share with your friends, anyone who loves horses, or anyone who might be struggling and could benefit from this message. If you have felt the healing power of horses or help them in their divinely appointed mission, please reach out. We want to hear your story. As we say goodbye, always remember that the horse is always there to help you heal.